WOZO Radio, 103.9 LPFM right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. We're recording this on Sunday morning, October 24th, 2021. I'm Larry Rhodes, or Doubter 5, and as usual, we have OZO Wombat on the line with us. Hello, Wombat.
It's 2021. Can I still say this? Who let the dogs out?
Yeah, you can still
I like to stay on top. I can still say that? Okay, great.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our guests today are George Brown the second and a half from Brooklyn. Hello. We have Dread Pirate Higgs. Hi, Gary, from Canada.
Ahoy there.
And the John Richards, all the way from England. Hello.
Hello.
Digital Free Thought Radio Hour is a talk radio show about atheism, free thought, rational thought, humanism, and the sciences. And conversely, we'll also talk about religion, religious faiths, gods, holy books, and superstition. And if you think you're the only non-believer in town, you're just not. In Knoxville, we have a group of over 1,000 of us.
Yeah.
And we'll tell you more about that after the mid-show break. Wombat, where are we going in the talk today?
We're going to be talking about the physics of unreality and all that pertains to it. But before we get into that subject, which should be really fun today, we're going to throw it up to our own Dread Pirate Higgs with our weekly invocation.
Our noodly lord, who art in a colander, al dente be thy noodles. Thy blood be rum, thy sauce be yum, with meat as it is with vegetables. Give us this day our garlic bread, and forgive us our cussing, as we forgive those who cuss against us. And lead us not into ketoism, but deliver us some carbs. For thine are the noodles, and the sauces, and the grog, whenever and ever. Ramen.
You know, I really love how it always takes a dig at ketoism. That's hard for me. Okay. Hey, Dread, why don't we introduce the topic of the show?
All right. Well, yeah, I was interested in talking about the physics of unreality, and it's how media, particular movies and television shows, presents a distorted view of how the world works, and how there may be a tendency of some to actually believe it works that way. And, in the absence of critical thinking, it could lead to issues where the way we imagine the world working is in direct conflict with the way it actually works, and leads to some pretty bad outcomes.
And you know what's weird? You actually worked on movie sets.
Yeah.
Haven't you? So you actually have like the full scope of seeing the strings, the director being like, okay, swap out the stunt guys, people.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, stand still.
Yeah.
Put in the grenade. Yeah. Step out, put the dummy, blow them up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
The holy grenade? The holy hand grenade?
The holy hand grenade.
And this was actually going to be a topic previously, but I unfortunately missed the memo and got too excited about something else. But what do you find so irksome? Like, what's an example that you want to talk about that's so irksome?
Well, I think with the prevalence of these superhero TV shows and movies, that we really get a distorted view of certainly what the body can take, what the human body is capable of withstanding. You think about the Flash, for instance, that instantaneous motion, from 0 to 110, it's the same as hitting a brick wall, traveling at 110. The fact that, your internal organs, of course, would just be, a big pile of mush inside your body, is, something that you sort of have to recognize is the case. Or even, where you see Superman, somebody's falling off a building and he, flies underneath them and scoops them, it's like,
right.
Well, if somebody fell into somebody's arms traveling at terminal velocity with the Man of Steel, his arms would in fact cut them into 3 nice pieces, bloody pieces at that. So,
Larry, go on ahead.
Yeah, I always was interested in those pictures. I thought they were funny, where like Superman was lifting up like an aircraft carrier, And I mean, you think about the size of his hands,
Right.
and even if he was the most powerful thing in the world, if he went and there was an aircraft carrier above him, he would have just flown right on through it because the weight of the aircraft carrier would have just pressed down and just, he
It's
would
like
be
supporting an elephant on a toothpick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is an interesting scene in the superhero show called The Boys, which is on Amazon, where they fly into a plane that has both of its engines like blown off or something, and the superhero type character is like, "Okay, I guess we can't do anything. We're gonna have to fly away." And then there's another superhero who's like, "Can't you lift this plane up?" He's like, "Don't you know how physics work? I have to press something to be able to push up.
Yeah.
If I'm flying in the air, I can't push off of anything. So we can't save this plane. We're done.
Well, that's the thing about,
yeah.
That's also the thing about Superman. What's he pushing against?
Yes.
I can understand it. Like if he had wings, then, he'd push
Right.
against the air, but how could he do it without any kind of jet engine or something?
What's the mode of propulsion? Like,
Right.
Right.
John Richards, listen, I know you might be feeling left out with a superhero discussion, but you gave us Harry Potter. Like, and I think eventually we're going to be going into the realm of, it's all just magic at the end of the day. Like the superhero, the force that controls the Flash, all these tantalizing aspects are magic. And I feel like who does magic better than like Tolkien? Who does magic better than, the Harry Potter universe and stuff like that? But do you find anything?
I have my wand right here.
Do you find anything particularly irksome about like the concepts of magic, and like why do you still have these problems if you can levitate anything or anything like that?
Yeah, well, it may surprise you to hear that Marvel Comics made it across the Atlantic.
No way. How do you get a comic book to fly that far? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the problem is, if it was presented realistically, a movie would be intensely boring, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
I mean, unless something happened like somebody put a live bullet in the prop gun.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the Eric Baldwin thing that just happened recently.
Yeah.
Oh, that happened recently?
Yeah, that was
days ago.
Yeah.
That was a
assistant director or something, or director of photography.
Photography, yes.
That can't still be happening. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But,
that
died just maybe 2 or 3 days ago.
Yeah. That's what you call a topical reference.
I
But
And
if we weren't expected to suspend our imagination as we walked into the movie theater, imagine how long we'd have to be there to get any events to happen. I mean, it takes 5 minutes to get beyond the Earth's atmosphere, as Captain Kirk found out recently, William Shatner, and 5 minutes to come back again. But to go any further than that is intensely boring. I mean, how many days did it take for them to get to the moon in 1969? I think it was 4. So,
and that's traveling at way supersonic speed. I mean,
Absolutely.
really, really, really fast.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so we've really got to put up with some exaggeration, otherwise we don't get the entertainment.
We got to wonder, if Jesus or Muhammad left the world, like floating up or on a winged horse.
Yeah. Yeah.
We know that there's no heaven right above the clouds.
Right. They didn't know that though. They didn't know that. So if you could actually and Dread, I'm just gonna this PP. If Jesus flew out and people saw it, he's traveling at least speed of light. Let's just give him speed of light. I'll give it to him, even though we could see him. I'll give it to him. We know the universe observable is like 14 trillion light years across. He's still going to heaven. It was only a couple thousand years ago. He's still going. Like, we're lucky if he's out of the galaxy right now. It's crazy.
Yeah.
How is he going to get to the speed of light? That's the problem, because
it doesn't have to.
Unless he accelerates very, very slowly, it's going to take months.
It's
and
rough,
if he does accelerate fast, then he's going to leave his brain behind, isn't he?
Yeah. Of course, there's time dilation. But
we get caught, Dread? Go on ahead.
Yeah. So, I understand, of course, like everyone, that the suspension of belief or disbelief is critical in appreciating, some fictions. I guess the concern I have is that some people tend to carry that over into their real life. and that it has real life impacts.
Yeah.
And in fact, it really is it almost supports a religious belief. Because of it's a continued suspension of disbelief. You open the book of Genesis, and you really do have to suspend your disbelief in order to appreciate that Moses parted the Red Sea, that kind of thing.
Sure.
And that's why I think it has the potential of negatively impacting people who don't have those critical thinking skills to parse that out.
George, I want to throw this out. I want to throw a question out at you, and see how you were raised an atheist, so you never had the religious indoctrination. But did you ever fall into like any sci-fi series or serial or book series where you're like, yeah, I never had a chance to believe in Jesus, but Dick Tracy could totally punch one guy in the face and knock him out, or whatever your cup of tea was back then. Like, were you able to suspend your sense of disbelief for any form of media?
Well, I have a confession to make to all of you and our listening audience and all the ships at sea. I am a science fiction junkie.
Nice.
If I could put it in a syringe and inject it into my aorta, I would do that. So it's science fiction and chocolate.
Together or separately?
What's that, John? So yes, I grew up reading science fiction and enjoying it, and but I could see bad writing. I can't handle bad writing, and a lot of science fiction is really cruddy writing.
Yeah, it is, especially now, but when everyone's trying to do it.
So, but I had a great love for Ray Bradbury, and he wrote junk too.
Sure. Even Isaac Asimov had some stinkers, right? But yeah.
So, I don't know what else to say. I mean, the concept of what if, but unlike, well, in a way, it's like I have experience that sort of parallels Dread Pirates, in that I was working in the record industry back in the early 60s, and could witness all the artifice of that, the top 40 situation. And it seems like what the thought that was coming to me from our discussion so far is that the human race, maybe the audience at large, keeps suffering from technology fatigue in the special effects, and so we need more and more whiz bang.
We get
more impact than
desensitized
the last
to
guy. What's that?
We get desensitized to like the level of CGI that's put into shows.
Yeah.
And now people decide to go on top of it and on top and on top.
So now it's like we have to be entertained by news on TV. Right. And no news story will get aired now unless it is accompanied by music. Think about it. And you go on YouTube, and everybody's YouTube's, you're going to fix your engine on your car. It's accompanied by music.
Yes.
It's all shtick. It's all theater.
Can I have a rant about that too? Because even a documentary, which you might consider to be similar to a lecture, has to have a background music, doesn't it? Well, and I can imagine when I was a teacher having to put a record on to do a lesson to.
Even documentaries about ants have to be like, and this ant's name was Jerry, and then here comes the evil ant, and now they're fighting against each other. There's action cuts and stuff. It's just like, what are you guys doing? Hey, Larry, I saw you with your hands up. What's up?
You know how I go on about the soul, before we.
Oh, he's still on the soul.
Heaven.
I knew I couldn't get it through. I knew I couldn't get it.
Well, let's talk about the physics of the soul. I mean,
sure.
That's
why is it that whenever somebody reports the soul, it's not naked, it's got clothes on? Are they like ethereal clothes? And they're always like floating just above the ground or standing on the floor. Does gravity have effect on a
Larry,
ghost?
there's an ethereal H&M where everybody gets their soul clothes from.
Okay.
And then they come with tiny little platform shoes with the polycarbonate heels that you can like stand 3 feet off the ground with.
Yeah. Well, one of the things though that let's say that a person died in a castle and the ghost haunts the castle. Well, if the ghost is not affected by material things, he wouldn't be affected by gravity. If he's not affected by gravity, then how is he still in the on Earth in the castle?
Why is he
years
flying through
after.
space?
Yeah, well, the Earth would have left a long time ago.
Right,
It just makes no sense. None of it. The physics.
By the way, I'm going to dress my soul at Gap. I'm sorry. It's not cool enough.
I'd like to read the
Target.
label on the jacket of a ghost and see where he shops.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Okay, Dread, what's up?
Well, anyway, I was going to say I've seen some really good films where, it's science fiction. It's informed by science. One movie I'm actually looking forward to is Dune, because that's science fiction. That's true science fiction.
Yep.
So there's technology, there's there's politics, there's ecology, and it's
a space opera.
But it's informed by science. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
It has a real basis in the physical world and the physics of the universe, and we can appreciate the spectacle without having to employ to such a great extent the suspension of disbelief. I mean,
agree.
When you look at Godzilla and Okra or whatever the two monsters are, it's just it was good when it was in the 1950s sci-fi genre, but the stuff that comes out now is just, I don't know. I don't watch it. I just balk at it. And think,
just to clarify, did you say Godzilla and Okra? Did I miss something?
Maybe
is
Oprah,
there a new
Oprah?
Oh, Oprah?
No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. So whatever the monster is, Megatron or.
Okay. I will say this. I love science fiction movies. I put them in two categories. One where there's like one scientific thing and everyone's freaking out about that scientific thing. Those are the ones I don't like. Those are the ones that are like your time travel. Oh, I came up with a MacGuffin. Everyone's talking about the MacGuffin and I get tired of talking about it for like half hour into the movie. And then there's the ones that are like Dune, or ones like Interstellar is that example of, we have this new weird thing and everyone's going to keep talking about it for the rest of the whole movie. Or movies where there's already an established world that has science that's futuristic in it and no one's talking about it because you only care about the story, and everyone's already jaded about this technology, and you see beautiful things but no one's like, it's not a big deal, no one cares about it. So like the original Star Wars movies where like people have lightsabers but people aren't like, your sword is a laser. Now the Star Wars movies are like, I have a special laser sword, and they're very explicit about it, but it's like, it was cooler when you didn't talk about it because that was just part of the world. And I feel like science fiction is a good job in coloring worlds and how people appreciate it, because we have technology here that we don't talk about every single conversation. And it just goes to make the world, in my head, the reality of a conversation more interesting when people take certain things for granted. In my head, it's like, that's because it's already a part of the natural world. John Richards, what's up? Sorry for that rant.
I've got a confession.
Talk to me.
This is unreal.
I know. So it is a place you could get there. You could. I hope.
I took the photo. Yes, it's my copyright, but it's not in my bedroom at the moment where I am.
Right.
So it does worry me that sometimes some people who maybe haven't had such a good scientific education, or maybe they are predisposed to believing things because they see them. And it does have an effect. Like, for example, thanks to Jaws, sharks are unreasonably feared. You know, the numbers of deaths caused by sharks every year, I think, is vastly exceeded by the number of deaths caused by spiders.
Or coconuts.
Yes.
But I don't want to be the guy who gets bit by the shark.
I didn't say they were harmless.
No, but if Jaws was about mosquitoes, people would be like, "Oh, these are the things that are killing way more people than anything else."
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. It's a good point. I think Jurassic Park has probably set back paleontology by at least 40 years.
Yes,
And
what about Planet of the Apes? Surely that reinforces the idea that we're descended from them.
Yeah, it does make the conversation more complicated when you're like, it's not a descendant, it's like a bifurcation off a common ancestor. It's complicated. It's nuanced. Though I have found this. And I'll say this. I think okay. I'll say this. Similar to how lies will always be more delicious than the truth, I found that nuance is always going to be more elusive than ego.
Yes.
And
yes,
we
yes.
tend to believe things that appeal to our ego more, even if
Yes.
the thing is counterintuitive and just flatly wrong or unsupported with any evidence. If it makes me feel good, I'll believe it. And nuance is all about letting you know maybe you don't know as much as you think you do, and there might be more colors to this particular topic than we're willing to let on. And I find like movies are really good at just appealing to ego, but not about nuance. And I would love to see someone take an attempt, even with documentaries, which I feel are skewing more towards entertainment and ego, but a discussion in a movie format about the lack of knowing things and always being willing to have more openness to nuance. And to be honest with you, I only get that from like obscure dramas or things that have more time to spend on subjects and not from movies itself. George, what's up?
Well, I have a movie for you.
Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me.
It was shot in Mongolia, and the name of the movie is The Cave of the Yellow Dog. The Cave of the Yellow Dog. And I'm not going to say anything more about it because there was a surprise, and I don't want to blow the surprise.
I will.
And I don't even want to say what it is.
I'm going to check that out. I'm going to fill out. Nothing. I love it. I'm definitely checking it out right now. That's good. Cave of the Yellow Dog. If you're interested, look it up. Also, Twilight Zone in my head is one of the best shows that was ever on television. If you watch every single one of those episodes, they've done more in a half hour or 20-minute format than most people have done with an entire movie series in terms of just punctuating a point about the human condition. It's never about the technology. It's never about the twist. It's never about whatever monster of the week is there. It's about the human condition and realizing we are a complicated species that are controlled by our vulnerabilities. And until we recognize them, that's when we have power to overcome them. It's just a beautiful thing. John, what's up? John, what's up? I saw you.
I don't know whether this will travel, but I'll try it. If your theory about nuance is correct, Ty,
talk to me.
Then the problem of unreality being convincing, excessively convincing, should have been worse when movies were in black and white.
Should have been worse when movies were in black and white.
Is
there a joke in here? I can't. I'm always listening for the pun. I'm not.
I didn't think it would travel. No, because somewhere between here and across the Atlantic, the sense got garbled.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm ready to catch the next one. I was trying. Dread, what's up?
I was going to mention, you had mentioned Twilight Zone. Another one was Electric Dreams, which was an anthology of Philip K. Dick's writings. And he's a well-known science fiction writer, but again, along the lines of revealing the frailties of the human condition, as opposed to, superhuman feats of strength and all that kind of stuff.
Right. It's amazing. I wish they make television like that today. I think they trying to. I think Twilight Zone has a reboot. I have not checked out yet. I know Black Mirror exists. Funny thing about Black Mirror, I didn't know it was made in England until like the 4th episode. I literally thought everyone was just speaking like a gibberish language and you weren't supposed to understand what anyone was saying until like it was like, oh, is this English? I was like, I don't understand what they're saying. Now I understand it. And I was like, there's captions here. There's English posters in the background. They have to be speaking a language. And I'm sorry about that. That's me personally. I didn't realize there's a variety of so many intricate accents in England. It's not just posh or scouse. Yeah. It's like 40 other different.
The village, they can vary.
It's nuts. It was nuts. I wasn't ready for it.
We can't understand each other.
It's crazy. Larry, final comments before we go out for the break?
No, I'm ready to go for it, I guess.
Let's do it.
All righty. This is the Digital Free Thought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio, 103.9 LP FM, right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. And we'll be right back after this short break.
Nice. Cool. I'm paused. Anybody need to take a break? Tea break? Oh, Larry's out.
what I was struggling with was the idea that
Yeah.
there's no middle. If the film's in black and white, there's no nuance. It's black.
I got it. If you need a film with less nuance, it would be better if it was in black and white.
Yeah.
Something like that. I feel it. I can feel it. It wasn't a bad joke. I just had I heard
if you
I
don't
heard
want
you
to
as if
watch,
you're saying something genuine, and then I was like, no, it's a joke. And I switched tracks between there. I lost the meaning.
Yeah,
if you all want to watch The Cave of the Yellow Dog, I will let you in on the secret afterwards.
Oh, I'm out because I want to totally watch this movie.
We don't want any spoilers. No spoilers.
I do want to see this. I do want to check this out.
Yeah, I don't want to give the spoiler because it's
no spoilers, George. Stop.
I have to stop talking about it.
You're the guy who knows like Darth Vader's Luke's dad. You're like, I'm not going to tell you anything about Darth, but it's going to be really impressive in a familial way. I'm not saying anything, but patriarchy, something like that, maybe. I don't know. It's like
before we go live again, I want to share something with you, which is related to our final gesture after our invocation.
Yeah.
That's good.
Because I got a piano teacher for one of our daughters here, and I was driving them and kidding on that there was something special waiting for the small daughter, and I said, I'll give you a clue in the car. So took my hands off the steering wheel and I went like that. I was trying to mime playing the piano.
Oh,
but they said, a magician?
Yeah. I guess that could be like a magic person. It could also be crowd. Like you could do crowds like this in sign language too. This means fire. This means wait. So like there's so many different things. But yeah, how would you do octopus? I don't know that one. Okay.
I can do cuttlefish.
You can do cuttlefish? Go for it.
Yeah.
Oh, is it like this? That means leave. You're so you don't know this, maybe you do know this, but British Sign Language is different from American, even though we still speak English. It's unfortunate, but yeah, I see that.
It's like spoken.
This means leave. But by the way, this does mean leave in American Sign Language, and kind of looks like a cuttlefish sort of just ejecting out of a situation. So yeah.
It's just like spoken language anyway, isn't it? And British language is the correct one.
Ours is based off the French.
I have a funny Star Trek story. I'll put it in the show.
Okay. Hey, George, do you want to come out and come right back in? Your video froze just before.
It's blank on my screen.
Oh, I'll have to reboot my whole system then, I think.
Maybe just turn off your video and turn it back on.
Unplug your camera and turn it back and plug it back in.
Give it a physical boot.
My camera's built in the machine.
Not an Unreal boot.
I turned off the video.
Turn it back on.
And now I turned the camera back on.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay,
now you're good to go.
Good to go.
Okay.
Save that Star Trek joke. Let's go. You guys ready?
Sure. I'm ready.
Look. Let's do countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back to the second half of the Digital Free Thought Radio Hour. I'm Doubter 5, and we're on WOZO Radio 103.9 LPFM right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Now let's talk about the Atheist Society of Knoxville. ASK was founded in 2002. We're in our 19th year. We have over 1,000 members, and we have weekly in-person meetings in Knoxville's Old City at Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria. Look for us out on the patio. If you'd like to join our Tuesday evening Zoom meetup, you can email us at askanatheist@knoxvilleatheist.org or let'schatsE@gmail.com. You can find us online, that's Knoxville Atheists, on Facebook, meetup.com, or at knoxvilleatheist.org, or Google Knoxville Atheists. It's just that simple. By the way, if you don't live in Knoxville, you can still go to Meetup and search for an atheist group in your town. Don't find one? Start one. Right. Well, Matt, where do you want to pick up?
We are talking about the physics of unreality, and I almost want to make a point that I appreciate it when shows do make the effort to show how boring it is, to show how frail human beings actually are in a sci-fi setting. And one of my favorite examples is Star Trek, the old school versions, where they would take floor. If you listen to a conversation when they're in an elevator, they will go down a series of floors that is always a consistent number of floors in their world, because the sound engineer has a map of what floor they're going from in their ship down to the next their location, and will chime as they're speaking to represent the exact number of floors they're going. And if it takes a whole minute for them to get there, he will do 7 chimes throughout their conversation in the background, and it will be a minute-long conversation in the elevator before they come out. And I'm like, I love that level of detail. George, you had something more Star Trek. What's up?
Well, you reminded me, my favorite old original Star Trek effect is the tractor beam.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which has specific music that goes with it. And I really like the way the whole thing goes together. The tractor beams.
Sure.
I was going to tell this little story about how I, on my job at the time, I ordered a tricorder, and I had to find a tricorder, and so I called the store, a Star Trek
explain what a
store
tricorder
in
is.
Yeah.
What's a tricorder?
Well, a tricorder is it's a little handheld device that Spock, the science and technology engineer, I think, on Star Trek, he carried it around with him, and the captain would say, "Spock, tricorder readings," and Spock would look at his tricorder and twiddle the dials a little bit, and he would say, "There are 5 life form readings on the other side of that hill."
Or what the environment is made out of, or the oxygen in the atmosphere. Anything that takes a reading will take a reading on the
should have been a
tricorder.
multi-quarter, not a tricorder.
Yeah.
Well, it was called a tricorder. So I called up this Star Trek store in Los Angeles, and I said, I'd like to buy a tricorder. And the fellow promptly said, do you want a dummy tricorder, or do you want a working tricorder?
Okay.
That's my joke.
Yeah. The working one, I assume, just had blinking lights and maybe some sound.
No, so some other time I'll tell you all the real context of this story, but that's enough.
Dred, what's up?
I think that we're living in a world of shtick, and shtick is a word that's really hard to explain. Do you know it, Dread Pirate? Have you ever heard it in the film industry?
Shtick is.
Yeah.
It's kind of like your modus operandi.
How would you?
Really. It's kind of a modus operandi.
But it's your modus operandi of your stage business. You're as an actor. Let's say it's like if you're a comedian and you play the violin like Jack Benny.
Yeah.
That's what. Yeah, it's
it's sort of the thing you fall back on.
It's kind of a gimmick too.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing.
So I see this.
It's what you wrap your act in.
But Dred, what were you going to?
And of course, it can also mean like stage business. It's a word that's not quite defined all the time. But there's a shtick that happens, like on YouTube, for instance. It's shtick for people to start their YouTube video by saying, "What's up, YouTube?" I mean, what a stupid question that is. But it's shtick. Everybody does it.
Yeah.
Can we say, "What's up, Alexa"?
You could. Dread Pirate, what's up?
So, extending on our topic, I was it carries over into some of the stuff you see on television, particularly on Discovery channels like Discovery and History, and another one called Detour, where there's ancient aliens and ghost hunters and all this kind of stuff. And it really is. I think it draws the gullibility of people who are set up to buy into this stuff, and then all of a sudden, Discovery Channel, which originally was touted as a science forum,
I know you're hurting me so hard right now.
Been totally debased by all these television shows that appeal to the lowest absolutely.
It is. You're
And
right.
the history,
You're absolutely
the History
correct.
Channel,
How
too.
the
Yeah.
great has fallen. It's amazing. It's totally true. It's totally History Channel is even worse. You
Right.
used to just be history stuff, and now it's just Game of Thrones.
It is, yeah.
But Romans.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
so
Has
bad.
about as much
Vikings.
relevance as
Yeah,
music
yeah.
TV to
Yeah.
music.
Yeah, MTV is no longer showing music videos.
Yeah.
Discovery's not discovering anything. History doesn't have history. AMC
Yeah.
is showing things like Home Alone. It's just like the third one, not even like the first one. It's like these aren't even American classics. No one watches the third Home Alone movie. No one likes that one.
No.
We all
I
know
so
that.
agree. It's a terrible shame that Discovery and History channels have gone that way.
Yep.
But as you said, Dredd, they're appealing to the lowest common denominator because
Correct.
that's the market, isn't it? And the
the money.
manufacturers of entertainment are very keen to commercialize as far as possible. So I blame, for all of the imaginary monsters, I blame the manufacturers of Monster Munch.
I will throw this out. I think
Sort of reverse engineering.
Yeah.
physics of unreality, like when a show like Mythbusters got very popular, I was concerned as a scientist because they were making definitive claims off of one test
Right.
that largely in most cases weren't repeatable. And we call that in science an N of one. You did one test,
Right.
and that is not conclusive of anything. There's no statistical points that you can make on an N of one.
Mhm.
So if you did a test and you're like, myth busted, it's like, no, you got to do that like 15 times at least just to get like an approximate average. And even then you could say my test, as I've designed it, shows that it's not feasible
That's
here.
right.
And then other people would look at that test and say, okay, well, what can we do to improve it? It's constant discussion, but they are marketing basically television entertainment as science and got rich off of doing it. And at the detriment of changing the way how people think about science.
Mhm.
And so you go on YouTube. I'm sorry, my last part of my rant. You go on YouTube and you find people who are like, I'm blank, blank, blank on YouTube. What's up? Right? And then they do one dumb test that's terrible. And they're like, and that's how you break iPod phones. And that's why Microsoft Zune is better than the iPod. It's like, no, you have to do more tests than that to come to definitive conclusions.
So another issue that has come up in recent months also is the replication error, the replication crisis, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of these, peer-reviewed studies out there have not been replicated, and yet they're being touted as the definitive answer of whatever scientists happen to be trying to research.
And the scary thing on top of that, or is it replicated only by one person in one lab, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean, is that, it's the test is done, the hypothesis is demonstrated, they've done the experiment, but nobody has gone to replicate the experiment in order to verify that the experimental process is done correctly, that there weren't confounding variables, yada, yada, yada. So it actually puts science on a very thin ice in some respects, that the rigor of verification, falsifiability, Karl Popper and all that kind of stuff is not being followed through on, and that is really that's giving science a bad rep.
Let me back up. Yes, it's giving science a bad rep. It's not putting science on thin ice. It's putting people's appreciation for science on thin ice. If anything, science is putting that on high alert, and which is why we're talking about it now.
Yeah,
John, what's up?
I couldn't agree more. You're speaking my words, Dredd, I think, because it's this misrepresentation of anecdotes, N1, as having significance that has devalued science over the decades. So I dislike what I call the Disneyfication of society.
Right.
Oh, that's so good.
And this is really why I wanted to talk about the physics on reality, because that is really lending it all this support, and people are just gobbling it up.
So let me
and
throw
that's
up another one.
Can I just finish this?
Go for it.
Thank you. That's why we were in such a mess at the beginning of the pandemic.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And we've actually got to thank the virus for giving real science a platform.
Right. I'll throw another one out that always bothered me is whenever you have like a CSI crime scene investigation show where they take the evidence and they take them to the lab, and the lab is always, as a lab manager, it always irks me when people aren't wearing their lab coats or PPE. We have a very good lab. People maintain safety standards, but the ones on TV should be shut down immediately because you have people with open lab coats and like gel frost hair, no PPE,
And
no
very
gloves,
poor
no
lighting.
eyes.
Very poor
And-
lighting.
And in the background, there's like neon lighting and bubbling Erlenmeyer flasks just on tables with food coloring, and nothing's labeled. And it's like, what is going on? And why is there one bottle pumping liquid into this bottle? What's going on there? Why
That's
isn't that
right.
in a fume hood? What
The
kind of
the only
chemistry is
thing they're
going on?
missing are tribbles.
Like, why do you need to do that to show that something's scientific? Like in a real science lab, it should just be everything's like, crystalline and clear and
That's
white.
right. And it's put
ideal.
away if you're not using it.
And put away if it's not used. Like, what is all this stuff? And there's people walking around on laptops and they're not watching where they're going. Makes me so upset. I know
And
it's
you
not
can-
a physics issue, but it's a policy
Well,
issue.
it is. It's
Like,
reality or unreality.
really
And
bothers me.
you can count the number of liquids, chemical liquids, that are actually coloured on the fingers of one hand.
Yeah, it's like bright primary colors: green, blue,
Yes.
red, and yellow. And it's just like, is this all Mountain Dew? What's going on?
They're
here?
all,
What's up,
they're
George?
all colourless.
Yoo-hoo.
George?
If I may be so bold as to assume an undertone to this whole discussion, it's that as a civilization, as I know it, we are always confusing theater with reality.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think one of the big
Is that our undertone? I mean,
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think
and the people who present the artifice of the theater that we're hooked on are very, very good at it.
Yes.
And that's nothing new. The ancient Greeks were great at this too,
Yeah.
at their theater.
George, I'm going to throw out the perfect example
I think
that I
you-
wanted to touch on, and I believe it is WWE. It is the absolute John. That is Worldwide Wrestling. Enterprise or Federation. Okay, great. There's no better example of live suspension of disbelief than watching a guy get slapped on the chest and being like, "Oh, he stopped his heart for 5 seconds. He's on the ground. He's and then he walks up and he gets away. It's like he died, but the referees brought him back to life so we can do the next match." And everyone's like, "Well, that's what happened. That's what happened. I know that because he did that last time. Undertaker, he dies all the time, every episode." Larry, what's up? I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, that's a good example. But consider the state of the art of special effects in movies nowadays. It's getting harder and harder to tell what's actually true. What's actually true and real, and what you can expect from what they portray as possible using special effects.
Exactly.
Larry, I hear you, but the thing is, you can actually make something convincing with a special effect. Whereas with Worldwide Wrestling, that's just two sweaty guys in underwear slapping each other, and people will still eat popcorn. People will go home and think, "I know how to fight because I saw that guy jump off a rope."
Yeah,
And
as
I
long
can
as
do
there's
the
a
same
folding
thing.
chair nearby.
Yeah, and it won't hurt because I saw a guy do it and he didn't get hurt.
Yeah.
So it won't hurt me either. And then you have people get injured and hurt. Backyard
Right.
wrestling all the time. Dred, what's up?
Well, I made a reference last week to the allegory of the cave. You all remember that from philosophy?
Socrates.
Yeah, Socrates, the allegory of the cave. So I kind of liken science as to that one person that ventured out and then came back to tell everyone, "Hey, man, you're just watching these images being, held before the
Projected.
fire."
Yeah.
And film is putting people back in the cave.
Film is putting people back in the cave.
Yeah, science got everyone out, and now film is putting people back in.
Okay, I'll take a little counter stab at that because I do feel like there's an issue of consent. When I'm watching a movie, sometimes I do it for an escape. Sometimes I want a good story, right? And so I am purposely putting my critical thinking here so that I can be more open to experiencing and enjoying whatever I'm seeing in front of me. But I want people to have accountability. I don't want to say films are making you less critical. I want people to be like, it's your fault if you aren't turning your critical back on.
Yeah.
Like if your critical thinking back on after you walk out of a movie theater, like you need to be able to do that. So it's not
Right.
the movie's fault. It's your fault if you're not doing that. And that's why we got to make sure people engage their critical thinking. Not all times, then. If you have to turn it off to have fun, go for it. But turn it back on. You come back to interacting with human society.
It's like
and I feel like there's
a little knob there that Data has, right? It just click off, click on.
Dread, I was thinking of things that you were saying way back, like even last week, with like how great would it be if we could turn off pain? Because like our brain's like, hey, mate, we're in pain. It's like, I get it. Can we please focus on whatever else I got to get done? Like, how can we improve evolution in a way or improve our bodies? I would also love for there to be like a little meter for your critical thinking gauge.
Yeah.
And if it's like, if it goes down to below a certain level, it's like red LEDs. But if it's in green, you're like, okay, this guy's thinking critically. It's great. Turn it off, turn it back on. Notifications are on. All right. This guy's trying to steal your money. Just, hey, what's up, Larry? What's going on?
Yeah. One thing though that you may or may not be have in mind is that you're a well-trained scientist. Your critical standards are very high. There are a lot of people out there that are not so high, and then they go into the theater and they don't exactly know where to draw that line of what's real and what's not real. And that's one of the things I was trying to bring up earlier.
And what's worse is they have the vote.
Yeah.
They have the population, the vote.
It is about the response. There is a responsibility, and I think part of it falls upon the producers of film in order to, make sure that they're not misleading whole, populations with these really outlandish notions about how the world works. Because I really seriously believe it does have a real world impact when people walk out of theaters.
Oh, it does.
Don't have that switch, go home and jump off their roof thinking that they can fly, or some stupid thing.
Don't try this at home.
Don't try this. Yeah, don't try this at home. I mean, the fact that they've got to put disclaimers like that. Is telling in itself, because now they're just covering their butts in order not to be sued. For gross negligence and misrepresenting, something that can't happen that they depicted could happen.
George.
Well, Facebook is in the hot seat right now. I don't know where to go with that one. People, I bump into people here where I live who tell me certain political realities that they believe. And I say, that's BS. Where did you hear that? And they say, oh, I heard it on Facebook. That's how I know it's true.
Yeah, they have their own realm of reality on the internet.
But the other thing, that I'm going to throw out is, mega churches present spectacle. And are they doing the same thing? Are they presenting the physics of...
No, and they're doing it because they know it works. Like, that's why they become even more theatrical, because they know that works. They know that's appealing. When you think about the crucifixion of Jesus Christ and the pictures that you have versus how it probably happened in reality, in the theater version, there's people lining the streets because everybody heard this is happening. And there's Roman soldiers in the front, and there's Roman soldiers in the back, and there's Jesus Christ carrying this giant lumber piece of wood with his sweaty abs. And he's just like, oh, this is so heavy, but I'm doing it anyway for your sins. And everyone's just like quiet, horrified, being like, I can't believe this is happening to such a good man. Probably in reality, who knows? It could have happened at midnight. No one even knew. There was probably no crowds. There was no internet. There was, how hard it is to get 16 people even just to show up at like a, either at like a party or like a volunteer shelter or a suitcase. People aren't doing that. People aren't leaving their homes to watch some guy carry a piece of wood. It's not that boring. Come on. I just, the drama of how we like to envision history versus the way how it may have actually been is always going to be desperately different from the two of each other. And I feel like we like to color and romance because we love the theatrics, and Christians know that, pastors know that, people in charge know that, and they will do the same thing, whether it's George Washington on a boat looking very proud and regal in that picture, or people signing the Declaration of Independence and they're all wearing their super wigs and stuff like that in a perfectly well lit room, even though it's like the 1700s. How do you even get that, right? We fall subject to that every single time. Yes. John Richards, get ready to take us out. What's up?
Well, I just want to say, of course, science has an embarrassing way of making unreality come true. I mean, I have a much better communicator than Captain Kirk had.
Sure you do. Listen, I'll throw that out too. Have you ever seen Quantum Leap? There was a show where a guy was literally jumping into people's bodies. I got to explain it for everybody else on the show. Scott Bakula, for the millennials. Scott Bakula, he jumps into people's bodies and he helps them out. And then he jumps into another body. But he's never doing it for profit. He's just trying to get back to his original body. And meanwhile, he has a friend that can find him through space-time and show up to his coordinates as a hologram. And he will tell him what happens in the future to help Scott Bakula try to help that person's life so that he can jump into the next life. It's like a whole karma situation. Yeah. But the thing is that little, I forgot what it was even called, but that device that his friend had,
Quantum Leap.
It was basically an iPhone. It was basically just a smartphone, even though it was like this huge piece of thing. It's like a giant thing in his hand. He's like, it says here tomorrow the stock market's gonna go up 2%, and that was like the biggest technology advance for like back then. But it's like, of course, like anyone can do that. Anyone can totally do that. It's like, it's gonna rain tomorrow. Let me push it into these buttons. It's like, that's just a weather. It's a weather app. We know what those things are.
And the latest thing, of course, is there's a girl being born, I think, in the States, whose genome was completely read while she was an embryo, and the decision was made to let her go to term and get born.
Okay.
Now think about that, because it means that in future you can have a little bit of cell taken out of your embryo, and you can have it read, and you can decide, this baby's got blue eyes. I don't want that. Give it to the abortion man.
No, it's more like they could just change it. They could change it.
Yeah, they could also change it too. That's the next step too.
Yeah. Yes, that's right.
Give her red anime eyes.
Yes.
We got
Pink
5
hair.
minutes left. Let's do some hot takes. Let's see. John, final words. What do you think about this topic before we head out? We won't plug yet, but what's your final words on the subject?
Okay. Well, it does worry me because, for example, our girls watch a cartoon show. It's an internet cartoon show, and the characters have all got very huge eyes, and they're all females, and they all are obsessed with their appearance and makeup and walking on the model catwalk, and it's giving my children an impression that the only thing that matters for girls is the external appearance.
Sure.
I don't like it.
No.
You know, maybe a bit of real talk, but when I was growing up, black beauty standards were never on TV. And whenever they were, it's a black person trying to straighten out their hair or blank their hair blonde or bleach their skin or be, closer to the white conventional beauty standards. So those affect people definitely growing up. Larry, it's important to know outside of the physics, outside of the echo chamber of media, that there's a whole real world out there that's subject to real physics where real things matter and real things have an impact, and we should highly value that more than what's being told to us through a particular agenda or a particular form of media. But Larry, final thoughts on the physics of unreality.
Well, I think they're unreal, as it were. I mean, you can.
One more last stab at souls.
No, I don't want to go there again. But again, you can't have Muhammad splitting the moon. I mean, how would he do it? Moon's a huge object. But in case we think that unreality is something that's come up with special effects in the current day, no, they've been going on forever. I mean, think of Paul Bunyan and Blue Ox. Any legend is unreality, and generally when they do things that are magical or prophetic, it all peters out when you look at it with the eye of science.
Sure. I'll throw one thing out. There is something called the rule of cool, whereas if it looks cool, you're willing to let it slide. And there's no better example. You guys won't know about this, but a show called
because
Dragon
it
Ball.
Makes a good story.
Right. There's a show called Dragon Ball Z where there's an evil villain who uses the power of the moon to get stronger. And so the good guys destroy the moon using energy blasts. And that worked for one enemy. And then 2 seasons later, another enemy was doing the exact same thing. And they're like, we got to blow up the moon. And they blow up the moon again but it was on Earth, and there was only one moon, and they blew it up 2 seasons ago. But we let it slide because it looked cool.
Right,
We let it slide because it looked cool. It's like they blew up the moon again, but I loved it the first time. So let's just let it happen again. George, would love to know your final thoughts on the physics of unreality.
It's this. Is there a one of us in this room right now who don't love well done artifice? Because I do.
Yes.
I do too.
No matter how much I know what's going on behind the scrim, that's a special kind of a curtain in theater. I love it when it's done well. I really,
It's entertaining.
I'm a sucker for it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I
We're all
wish the artifice was
aren't we? If a car crash doesn't explode 5 times, I'm cheating.
Yeah, how bad would it be if the secret agent was just pushing bullets into a car and it wasn't exploding for like the whole movie? You're just like,
Right.
but this used to work. What's going on here?
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
shot these red barrels and nothing's going on. Dread, final thoughts.
You
First
know,
topic.
It's funny you say that because there, I think it was, what's that? Jump Street, the third one, where the 2 main characters there, they encounter several situations on a car chase where an explosion should have happened and didn't.
Right.
And they go, wow, that didn't happen. And then it was finally a truck full of chickens or something, and that exploded. So that was kind of a funny twist on the physics of unreality.
I love it. I love it.
But I did want to, just before we close out, I wanted to just mention a petition that I had started, which you can find at change.org, and it's World Truth 2021. And it's an appeal for something similar to the 1914 Christmas Day truce, but an intentional appeal to the UN to have a break from hostilities as a step towards more reasonable discourse, towards peaceful resolution in a world of peace. So I just want to push that.
I love it. Oh man, now I can't transition back to exploding cars. I had a whole story lined up. You ended on world peace. Dread Pirate, where can we find your stuff at?
You can find me. I live stream this on Sunday mornings at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. My channel is MINDPYRATE, Mind Pirate. So
fantastic.
Check me out and subscribe, please.
Cool. John Richards, where can we find you?
I'm on Free Thought Productions channel. Please like, subscribe, set the notifications, all that sort of thing. But last night, not only did I launch, it's a regular thing, it's not the first, Global Atheist News, which I know we're maybe going to talk about another time because of the AI priests and pastors. But I also had a very interesting conversation with ex-Christian Erin, who is one of the presenters for the ACA. And she's a great conversationalist. Take a look.
It is good to find people who are still good at, even if it's over Zoom, just a face-to-face conversation. It's such a rewarding experience.
Mm-hmm.
And as we step out of
what is ACA?
Atheist
Community of Austin.
Yeah. And I would not recommend that you subscribe to my channel. I would recommend that you check out Global Atheist News, hosted by John Richards. It is a fantastic weekly update of everything going on in the world. Next week, I want to talk about one of the stories that he brought up with AI taking over the church and whether or not more people are congregating in front of an AI pastor than live flesh and blood pastors, and why the flesh and blood pastors are getting upset about it. It's the most bizarre thing, but it's a thing that's actually happening. I'd love to delve in more. Dread,
I want to see the pastors replaced by Daleks.
Oh man, okay.
I just wanted to point out that Dada's trading, Loma put in here that always at the end of the movie, of course everyone's walked out, is the story, all names, characters, and incidents portrayed in this production are fictitious. The disclaimer, of course, is always at the end after you've all left. And so,
unless it's a Marvel movie, then you're sitting through it, enjoying the soundtrack. Larry, what is atheism? I have no idea. I think we're done with the show since nobody knows what atheism is and no one's talked about it. So, yeah, souls exist. Atheism doesn't mean anything. End of the show, right, Larry?
Right. Sure. Souls don't exist. At least that's what I understand. My book, and since you asked, is called Atheism, What's It All About? And it's available on Amazon. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on the Digital Free Thought Radio Hour. Remember, you can find this show on Apple iTunes, Pocket Casts, Amazon, and podcasts everywhere. Just search for Digital Free Thought Radio Hour. You can find my content at digitalfreethought.com. Be sure to click on the blog button for our radio show archives, atheist songs, and many articles on the subject. If you have any questions for the show, you can send them to us at askanatheist@knoxvilleatheist.org. By the way, if you're a member of a clergy, a preacher, an imam, pastor, or priest who no longer believes in the claims of religion, there's help for you at the Clergy Project. It's clergyproject.org online. Go for it. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. Remember, everybody is going to somebody else's hell. The time to worry about it is when they prove that heavens and hells and souls are real. Until then, don't sweat it. Enjoy your life, and we'll see you next week. Say bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Cool. Great show, everyone. Thank you so much for coming by.
Hey, I just wanted to point out here, Loma says, as a final word, he says, maybe we'll put that disclaimer on the Bible one day.
Maybe. Why don't we just make a Bible that has that as a disclaimer at the very end,
Yeah.
and just see how many people get upset?
Yeah,
It'll just be called the friendly Bible. It's exactly the same as everything else. Not a single word change, but the disclaimer at the very end of the page.
Yeah.
That's what you get.
Classify it under fiction.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
if I stay in a room that has a Bible in it, I always take it out and cross out in the beginning and write in once upon a time.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.